wish everyone a happy new year, and I hope everyone had a great holiday season and you guys weren't too naughty, or at least not so naughty that it ended up something bad happening. How's that? My name is Alina Gilbert, and I will be presenting our first webinar of the year, which is our 2022 year in review. What have we learned? And just before we get started on that, you guys get a meme and I get to do some housekeeping things. If you have not ever been on a webinar of ours before, the bulk of your screen should be the PowerPoint, and I am at the bottom right-hand corner. Hello. There is a chat icon on the left, and you can enter your questions as we go, during the class, and I will look at all of them at the end, and time allowing, we'll go through all of them, or as much of them as we can, before 1 o'clock. So please feel free to enter the questions. Just know I'm not looking at them as I'm teaching. The other thing is this class is eligible for 1 CMCA credit. For those of you who need it, they will be automatically emailed out to you, usually within 24 hours of the class. We just need to get verification of who was there. Then you'll get it emailed. If you don't see it within the next day or so, please reach out to us and we will make sure and get that over to you. Sometimes it gets caught on spam, or in spam, I should say. Also, the PowerPoint, I know I didn't send it to you ahead of time and people get upset when I do that, but I didn't want to do it this time because I wanted some parts of it to be a surprise. But we will send out the PowerPoint presentation as well, along with your credit. So please don't worry about it. Feel free to take notes. If you are having any technical issues, please don't put anything in the notes because I can't really do anything about it on my end. However, you can email Summer Sims, who is our education coordinator, and you can email her at ssims@altitude.law, or you can call her at 303-991-2076, and she can help you with any technical issues. She'd also be the person who can help you with if you aren't getting your CMCA credits or anything like that. All right, so shall we get started? Let us. For those of you who have done these, year in review classes with me, I always started off with, what did you think of last year? And I get this, and I ask a lot of people that I come into contact with, most, of course, in the industry, but I also, I ask people in my office, I ask managers and board members, and so then I just try to collect things. And so I always have, here's the negative comments I got of prior year, and then here are the positive comments. So we got the negative comments, and as you might suspect, and I think this is going to be a trend for us, is we had way too much legislation, right? So I just listed the bills that passed. Of course, House Bill 1137, we all love it and hate it, mostly hate it. This is our bill that turned collections and enforcement on its head. As you know, we're all still reeling from it. We had Senate Bill 59, which was the bill that said proxies cannot be good for more than 11 months. House Bill 1040, which was, you can't just close your common elements off because you don't want to maintain them or because you don't want to have them. You can only close them off if you're maintaining them. House Bill 1139, which was public right-of-ways. Hey, associations, you can't regulate anything when it comes to the public right-of-ways. And then House Bill 1314, which was the towing statute, which was about 28 pages, I think, in length. About 2 to 3 pages apply to HOAs when it comes to towing from private property. And it added a whole bunch of specifics that associations would have to follow if a towing company was ever going to tow from our parking lots or wherever again, right? What else did we hear? Well, people are still mean and people are still demanding and impatient. I don't know that anyone would argue with that. I think people are also very argumentative right now and angry. They still are. I was at a virtual meeting last night and I I was laughing about it later with another attorney here because there were some owners that weren't happy with something I was telling them, and they thought they were just going to cross-examine me. Did you or did you not look at this? And did you or did you not look at that? And the First Amendment says this, and, you know, so it was great. But people are not real nice right now. Safety, that unfortunately we have to talk about safety. There's been quite a few stories out with people getting hurt because of their HOA status. We've had stories about the guy who shot the HOA president and her husband. In Georgia, we had the case where a homeowner decided she was going to shoot the manager and then try to drive around and shoot everyone else who was involved, including the attorney. Thank God she didn't get to do that. She got caught by the police, but safety is a real concern. I just about a week and a half ago, I got back from the CAI law seminar out in New Orleans, and I promise I did go to the classes, but there was a whole discussion there on safety, and it's very sad that we have to go there. And I think safety is going to continue to be a concern, to be honest with you. It's very difficult to find good employees. I heard that from a lot of the management companies. I can talk about it from kind of as an employer at a law firm. It's hard to find good employees. It's hard to find people right now. So that continues to be an issue. And of course, then there's, inflation. Inflation, everything, gas prices especially were way too high. The cost of everything was just way too high. So those are the negatives of 2022. I'm sure you guys can all think of more negatives, but I didn't have room for much more. This is what I put on there that was like the predominant comment. So the next question is, well, was there anything positive about 2022? Can we think of anything positive? Well, this meme cracks me up, but here are some of the positives, and it makes me laugh. Well, it was better than 2021. I think I have this every time I teach the class. Somebody says, well, last year was better than the year before. So, I guess that's a positive. Virtual meetings have become a thing. We talk about virtual meetings. First, it was, hey, we learned we can do virtual meetings. Then it was, hey, we can actually sort of figure out virtual meetings. And now it's a thing. A lot of people do virtual meetings now, and it's become somewhat of a norm. Speaking of norms, life is somewhat back to normal. I don't know what normal means, if it means like pre-COVID days, but certainly I think life is a little bit more normal these days than it has been in the prior couple of years. More people paying assessments after HB 1137. I have a question mark. I don't hear consistently the same thing, but a lot of community managers are telling me that now that we're posting stuff on people's doors, they're not real happy about it, so they're paying because they're embarrassed. So there might be something to that, right? More people paying assessments, that can only be a good thing for HOAs. Businesses are stabilizing. The James Webb Telescope pics, those were very cool. Nothing to do with HOAs, but it was very cool. One of my favorite quotes is, it's over. What's positive about 2022? It's over. And that's hilarious. That was actually someone in my office who said that. And the last one, the Detroit Lions had a winning season. Yay. I know you're probably wondering, why does Alina care? Well, Alina's from Detroit, so but I take the little wins when I can. But anyway, so those are some of the positives of 2022. Like I said, I'm sure there's many more that you guys can think of. But those are some of the ones we got. So then we go into, well, what on earth have we learned from all this stuff that has happened in 2022? What have we learned going into 2023? Well, I think what we've learned, unfortunately, the number one thing we've learned is legislation governing HOAs is not going away, is it? As we talked earlier, we have had in the past year legislation governing collections, enforcement, towing, public right-of-ways, and then the last few are things that may be coming down the pike. So there's talk about another reserve study bill coming out. If you recall, we had one last year. The governor vetoed it because it implied that associations had to be 100% funded. And the governor said, there's no way that's going to happen. So he vetoed it. only he vetoed 1137, but that didn't happen. So there's talk about a reserve study bill coming out. Haven't seen it yet. There's talk about an 1137 cleanup bill coming out. God, I hope so. There's just a lot of things about 1137 that I think we would all agree need to be cleaned up. Kiowa rewrite. There is definitely talk about a Kiowa rewrite, and that's very scary to me. It's not going to be this year, from what I understand, but Representative Titone is basically thinking Kiowa needs a complete overhaul. Well, of course, she would know better than, all the people who were involved in putting it together and, the Uniform Act and all that stuff. So, of course, why wouldn't it need a rewrite? I'm being sarcastic in case you can't tell. Sometimes I'm not very clear. Just kidding. All right, and then this last one that I highlighted, so this is an actual bill that has come down. We have this one. I have a copy of it right here. It's House Bill 1105. First one I've seen in 23. And this one talks about creating a task force to examine issues affecting homeowners' rights. Homeowners' rights where? Well, two task forces. One, their rights with respect to HOAs and their rights with respect to metro districts. Okay, so this came out, and essentially what it says is we're going to have these committees, and here's who's going to be on the committees. And, for the HOA committee, it's a lot of what you might think it would be, but essentially it's we want homeowners, we want a builder representative, we want HOA attorney, we want management company representative. So it's basically all these people, and their whole job is not to look out for what is good for the associations, but look at the homeowners' rights and see how they're being impacted and what needs to change as far as, for homeowners to have a better life. And I've got some thoughts on that, but you probably don't want to hear them here. So this task force is supposed to put out an interim report in September and then a final report at the end of 23. Again, this is a bill. We don't know what it's going to look like as it moves through, legislative process. We don't know if it's going to be approved, but it's out there, and I think it's indicative of what we're going to keep seeing. Their legislature's on a kick about homeowner rights and the poor mistreated homeowners and how horrible they have it and how they need protection. And so this is just, I think, the first bill that we're seeing that is intended to address that. So only time will tell as far as the rest of the stuff, but I think it's pretty clear based on everything we've seen that the legislation's going to continue. So all we can do is kind of hold our breath, try to testify against the bad legislation, and hope that most of it doesn't pass. What else have we learned? We have learned that insurance costs are not going down, but I think we had the same slide, not the same picture, but the same slide last year. Last year, what we saw was, especially in the mountains, premiums tripling, quadrupling, it like becoming virtually impossible for associations to be able to afford insurance. And I'm not talking like $20,000 a year. We've had associations in the mountains that got quoted something like $500,000 a year. That's not pocket change. And so it's very crazy out there. In the city, we're seeing them definitely increase. A lot of times they're doubling. They're not quite tripling and quadrupling in the city yet, but the premiums are out of this world. And I suspect you have all seen it as you're going out to bid for your insurance policies. You're seeing what the numbers are coming back at. You're paying more money and you're getting less for it. The wind hail deductibles, they're not going away either. When I first started in the industry, we had specific, it was just a dollar amount, like a $10,000 deductible is the same, regardless of the type of damage. And then it changed. Then it migrated to, it's going to be a percentage of the total value of either a building or the entire community. And it was somewhere like 1%, 2%. Then we were kind of going from 2 to 5%. Well, now we're like at 5 to 10%, right? That's almost a self-insurance policy. I mean, if you're paying 10% of the total value of the entire community, you may as well be self-insuring in a lot of these. So it's not getting cheaper. And in fact, it's getting prohibitively expensive. I like to pick the brains of our insurance professionals when I run into them at seminars and things like that. And I did get to talk to a couple of folks recently. And I said, hey, are you guys anticipating any kind of like state or federal legislation limiting, the wind hail deductibles or premium increases or anything like that? And they said, we don't think so, because ultimately what's going to happen if these get limited is that the insurers are going to be pulling out of the markets. We've already seen some insurers pulling out of Colorado because of the wind and hail claims, but we're going to see more. And there's going to be far less opportunity and far less choice for associations to be able to go out to bid. And at some point, we may not have anyone who's willing to provide wind hail insurance coverage in Colorado if we can't have the deductibles be at some level that the insurance companies think are appropriate. So it's, even the insurance professionals think that this is not something that's going away. And if the government tries to legislate against it, they're just going to pull out. They don't have to provide insurance in Colorado. Hey, virtual meetings. We're back to virtual meetings. They're still the best way to go. I don't think everyone agrees on that. I think a majority of people think that, especially the professionals who go to the meetings. So, the attorneys, the community managers, the insurance agents, whoever they are, and the people who come and visit the meetings who don't live in the community. I think most of them prefer the virtual meeting because you don't have to leave your house, right? You can just get on your computer and be there. And it's definitely a lot more convenient. But that's not the only reason. We're still seeing and hearing that you get better attendance when it's virtual. People who are out of town can attend. People who don't want to leave their house because it's cold outside, they can attend. People who just don't want to see other people or who still have concerns about COVID, they can still attend. And so as a result, associations are still seeing more folks attending when there's a virtual option available. What are the other benefits? Well, it's easier to control, right? You can hit that mute button as the host, and you can kind of keep order and allow business to be conducted. Whereas at an in-person meeting, sometimes all heck breaks loose, right? And there's nothing you can do. It becomes a riot mentality. Things start to spiral out of control, and all of a sudden we aren't getting anything done. Safety, again, I'm going to keep bringing up the safety issue. People are scared. I have had several occasions where board members would call me or manager would call me and say, there is a homeowner who's threatening to come to the meeting and shoot everyone there. Like, I'm sorry, I won't be at that meeting. Do you want to be at that meeting? No. So, in those types of situations, and, before we used to have the off-duty or on-duty police officers attend the meetings with us. And sure, maybe that makes you feel safer, but I don't know who the guy's going to shoot first. They'll get him eventually, but I don't want to be in the way of the bullet. So again, it's the safest option is the virtual meeting, in that nobody's going to shoot you through your computer, right? And then the other thing is, in lots of cases, it's actually a cheaper option. So for communities, for example, that don't have a clubhouse or a meeting location, a lot of those communities have to find rooms where they can meet, whether it's a local church or a rec center or a library. And a lot of times there's a charge to use those rooms. And so when you're doing a virtual meeting, obviously you're not having to pay to use space somewhere else. So again, we have learned that virtual meetings still work. They're still a good way to go, maybe even the best way to go. And they help us get more people to attend and be able to conduct more or better business because we can control the rioting, and they're safer and possibly cheaper. So it's still a good thing for us. What else have we learned? All right, you still have to carry a mask with you at all times, just in case, right? We have medical facilities. Most of them still require a mask. I cannot get used to it. I guess I understand it. I don't like it personally. We'll have sensitive people who are just terrified of everyone, and they're the ones asking everyone else to put on masks. Some people will do it, some people won't. If you're not vaccinated, there are a lot of businesses that have signs that say, hey, you got to wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. Or if you're not feeling well, there's a lot of businesses that say you have to wear a mask or you can't even come in. But if you're coming in, you best be wearing a mask if you have any issues whatsoever as far as health goes. So I suspect we're all still carrying masks with us, or at least have them in our cars or in our bags or somewhere where we can get it real quick if we need it. You just never know when you need it. All right. Don't be offended by this picture. I think I was laughing about it for quite a while. Don't get too comfortable. I think if we learned anything last year, it's don't get too comfortable, because things are going to change, and they're not always going to change the way we want them to or the way we think they should. They are going to change. Legislation is going to keep coming, and it's going to keep changing stuff for us. So you never know what kind of stupidity or ingenious ideas, not so much, we're going to see, right? So last year, we were all scrambling. Remember when we had to get all these updated policies in place? It was crazy. It was crazy. Nobody was ready for it. We couldn't imagine in our wildest dreams at the beginning of last year that this is what we would be doing in the second half of the year to get everything done by August 9th or whatever we got it done. Nobody expected that. Well, this year, I'm thinking we should probably expect it. So what we also learned is your budget for these policy rewrites or for whatever things you're going to have to do differently at the end of this year that you didn't have to do last year. If we don't have to do anything differently, if we don't have to rewrite policies, great, right? No harm, no foul. But at least if you budget for it, you'll be ready for it. There were a lot of associations that were having, financial concerns. And even though it wasn't super expensive to rewrite the policies, there were still a lot of boards that were like, hey, that's still a lot of money. And we didn't budget for it. So we should assume the worst. And I hate to say it, but we should assume that there's going to be more policy revisions, and we should have some money in the budget for it. And learn to be flexible. Nobody really likes most of these changes, right? I have boards, and I'm sure you guys all deal with certain boards that are like, no, we're not going to adopt the new policies. We're not going to change how we do collections. We're not going to change, how we enforce. I had a Zoom meeting with a board this morning, and this board, they had violations, and they decided they wanted to follow their old enforcement policy instead of their new enforcement policy. Well, lo and behold, and much to everyone's surprise, the homeowner gets an attorney, and the attorney actually looks at Kiowa and looks at their policies and sends them a letter saying, these fines, you imposed all these fines against my client, but you didn't send them a certified letter. You didn't give them an opportunity for a hearing. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. And your letters didn't comply with what the statute now requires. And I had to tell the client at this meeting, like, no, you didn't do it right. You cannot try to enforce these fines or these violations, you got to start from scratch. You got to write off these fines. You got to start over because you did it wrong. And so I think we have to learn to be nimble and flexible as things change, and we're going to have to learn to pivot real quick here to be able to comply with whatever the new legislation may bring. All right, this one I want to spend a little bit of time on because this is something we are all struggling with a lot. It is impossible to enforce rules against repeat offenders and really against those one and done offenses. So for example, things like noise, right? Odor, you're being a jerk, you're threatening to hurt people. Those are all things that kind of like, yeah, they're violations, but I'm having a loud party in the middle of the night. I'm violating the covenants because I'm being too loud. But by morning, my party's over and there's no more noise and the violation is cured. So yeah, feel free to send me my warning letter now telling me I shouldn't do this. But next time I throw a party and it's really loud, you're going to have to send me the same warning letter again because it's a brand new violation. I just cured this one. So it has become increasingly difficult for attorneys to get involved in any of these types of violations, but also for boards to push these violations to some sort of a resolution. Because ultimately, once they're done making noise, they're done with a violation. I had to have a conversation with a board, and it was really sad because they have someone in the community who's like walking around threatening people. He's a homeowner and he's threatening people when they do things that he doesn't like. He doesn't think they should be doing them. Like he yells at them, he curses at them, he threatens them. And guess what? When he goes back in, he's done and he just cured that violation because he stopped yelling at them. Well, this is hopefully one of the things that if we have a cleanup bill that it will address. I think it is, I think for the well-being of the owners who want to have peaceful enjoyment of their property, allowing things like this and having associations be completely helpless to address them is really, I think that is one of those rights and of the homeowners that if this committee, this team, this task force gets created, I think it's one of the things they should be looking at is, hey, a homeowner's freedom and a homeowner's ability to enjoy their property only goes as far as your neighbors, right? So if your neighbor is doing something that impacts your ability to enjoy your property and there's nothing anyone can do about it, how is that in the best interest of the association? How is that in the best interests of that homeowner? It's not. And so again, this is a big problem with 1137. It's not the only big problem, but it's one that at least I have the hardest time with because these poor associations are stuck and there's nothing they can do. Okay, well, let's talk, instead of what we have learned, let's talk a little bit about what worked in 2022, right? There's some things that worked. So those associations that, like I said, were nimble and said, yes, we're going to rewrite our policies. We're going to do it before the deadline, or we're going to do it as soon as possible after the deadline. And we're going to start strictly following them. Those associations definitely were at an advantage because they were able to start the processes sooner so that they could get the issues resolved sooner, right? So that definitely worked for communities that followed the policies. Mail ballot elections, those seem to have worked. Again, with virtual meetings at hand and having to do secret ballots for contested elections, there are a lot of communities that took advantage of the mail ballot option because they couldn't do a secret ballot during the meeting. But then on the other side, there were communities that actually researched and invested in a virtual meeting platform that allowed them or allowed their owners to vote secretly while they were virtually attending a meeting. And the system had the capability to spit out total numbers, the vote. It could spit out an actual ballot printed out based on what the owners, how they voted, without the names or identifying marks on there. And there were a couple of these, and I went to a virtual meeting last year where that was done. And I will tell you, it was very painless. And I was extremely impressed because I wasn't expecting a whole heck of a lot, but it was very painless. And this was a pretty large community too. So I certainly think that's a good investment of a board's time. It's, from what I'm hearing, these platforms are not as expensive as they once were, or as we might think they are. I think the community I worked with, I think they said it was only a couple $1,000s. And I mean, only, right? I know. I mean, it's not pocket change, but for a very large community to only spend $2,000 to be able to do this and to have the meeting online and to allow homeowners to vote online, it was a really big accomplishment for them. And I think it was very well received. So I encourage boards where, hey, if you're thinking you like this option, if you like the meeting being virtual, or even if you like the meetings being hybrid, I'm seeing more hybrid meetings. And honestly, some people think it works great and some people think it doesn't work at all. I attended a hybrid meeting just the other day. I was virtual myself, but there were other people virtual, and then there was people in a room. It took us about 10 minutes to even be able to get started because all these technical difficulties, and nobody could hear anybody. But once we got started, I could only hear people in the room if they had a microphone. So online, I couldn't hear anyone talking unless they were talking into a microphone. But when you have these types of hybrid meetings, if you don't have a platform, again, that allows for secret voting during the meeting, you are still going to have to use the mail ballot, because even though you have some homeowners who are in person at the meeting location and they can vote by secret ballot, you got a whole group of other homeowners who are still in attendance but virtually, and they don't have a mechanism to vote. So you are still going to have to turn around and do a mail ballot if you have a contested election. And the mail ballot process, we've done whole classes on how you do a mail ballot for an election. It can get pretty complicated with secret ballots and double envelopes and things like that, but they do work. What else worked? Listening to advice of legal counsel and not doing it all by yourself. Yes, there are actually boards. It's not so much the community managers, it's the boards who are saying, I'm an attorney, I can do this myself. Or we know better, we don't want to pay, we shouldn't have to pay for this, we're just gonna read the statute and do it ourselves. I have yet to see anyone do it themselves and do it correctly. So I would say that that's a no-no. That's what didn't work. But listening to your attorneys and letting your attorneys handle it, I think that is the better option, especially when it comes to all the new legislation, all the little nitty-gritty things that we can't even all agree on what they mean. And then the other thing that worked is going out to bid for insurance. I said earlier that insurance prices are going up, up, up. They are, but I have spoken with some agents and also some boards and community managers who have told me that, well, we went out to bid and we found something that was less expensive than what our current insurer is proposing. So our current insurer wants to double our rate, our premiums, but we found someone who would only increase it by 50%. So I think it has worked for associations. You're not going to get usually anything cheaper, but you might be able to get something cheaper than what your current insurance policy is offering you for renewal. So those are things that have worked. Again, you guys can probably all think of other things that have worked during last year. because this is not an all-inclusive list at all. But we want to talk about what didn't work, right? And I think this list is kind of the polar opposite of the last list, which is it's like everything, if you didn't do anything that was listed previously that did work, then everything you did didn't work. Does that make sense? I don't know, I just confused myself. All right, boards refusing to adopt or sign the updated policies. I still talk to community managers, and maybe you guys are on this webinar and you know who you are, where you're like, I can't get my board to sign the updated policies, right? Whether it's the fact that they don't like what the policies say, or they don't like how the policies are written, they want to drag their feet, whatever the reasons are, we can't get them to sign the policies. And that's a real problem. It's a problem because until your boards have the policies, they cannot move forward with any enforcement or any collection efforts. And they all have a fiduciary obligation to act in the best interests of the association and to follow their covenants and governing documents. And guess what that means? That means they're enforcing their covenants. They're collecting assessments because that's what their documents say they have to do. And if they're not doing it, they are in violation of their fiduciary obligations. They're in violation of their declarations. They're in violation of Colorado law. And they are all exposing the association and themselves personally to liability because they're acting willfully. They know they need to do this. They've been advised and they're saying, we're not signing these or we're not doing this. Well, that's a willful action. So what does that mean? It means they could get sued for that personally. And guess what a lot of D&O policies have as an exclusion? Willful actions of the board. So I don't say this lightly, and I'm not trying to use the fear factor, but actually I am. Fear works really, really well sometimes for people. And sometimes that's all you can use. Boards refusing to enforce or collect due to requirements of the new legislation. I mean, that goes right hand in hand with the updated policies, right? Maybe they signed their policies, but now they're saying, we don't want to do all this extra stuff. We don't want to send everything by certified mail and incur costs. We don't want to post on the door. We don't want to send 2 30-day demand letters. Whatever they're saying and whatever justification they are using for not enforcing or not following the new policies, it's exactly the same liability exposures when they fail to sign them or fail to adopt them. So your board, I mean, for those of you who are having a hard time with your boards, make sure they understand they think they're playing it safe, but what they're doing is really quite the opposite. They're exposing themselves to personal liability. So they need to move forward with these things. They need to step up, and they need to, if they can't, maybe they shouldn't be on the board, okay? Doing it without involvement from legal counsel. Again, this is the polar opposite of involving legal counsel and letting them do the work for you, right? Board knows better. Here's a funny story. It's not really, well, it's funny to me because I can say I told you so. Have a board that wanted us to draft policies. So we drafted the 3 updated policies for them. This board has about 3 attorneys on it, older retired attorneys. And of course, they think they know better. So what they did was they rewrote some of the policies. And they rewrote their enforcement policy especially. And guess what they put in their new enforcement policy? That every fine, every violation was subject to a $500 fine. Every violation subject to a $500 fine. We told them, hey, guess what? 500 is the cap on all fines for a single violation. So then they decided they were going to enforce their covenants against an owner in the community. They thought they followed everything, and they send us the stuff and they say, okay, we did what we were supposed to do. We followed our policy, and you need to do your thing now, Altitude. And we looked at it and we said, well, we can't, because you rewrote the policy and it doesn't comply with what the law says. You fined them something far more than what you could fine them, and you didn't give them their due process. And therefore, you are going to have to start this all over again. But before you do, you need to get your policy corrected. That's what happens when the board knows better. So please convince your boards that they really just don't worry about it. Let the legal team handle it. You can ask questions after the fact, but don't just rewrite it. Please don't rewrite it. Playing it by ear. Again, those were the people who said, we'll just see how it goes. I don't know. We don't have plans to sign the policies. We don't have plans not to sign the policies. We're just going to play it by ear. And very rarely does that turn out in anyone's best interests. So I would say try to have it planned out and don't play it by ear and just follow the advice. That's the easiest way to keep yourself, you the board, you the association, out of the liability's way. Now the fun part. We had predictions last year for 2022. So let's see, were we right about any of them? We said it was going to be more of the same. And remember, this was coming out of COVID. I think it depends who you ask. I don't know that it was exactly more of the same. It seemed a little different to me, but I'm sure there's plenty of people there who said, it probably is pretty similar. More mask mandates in flux. I don't think we had it too much. I mean, like I said, we have the medical facilities, but we haven't at least had mandates for us to have to wear masks in public places. So I think that one wasn't exactly accurate. Continued increases in insurance costs. Most absolutely, definitely. And we talked about that ad nauseum already during this class. So yes, they are going up. I don't see them going down anytime soon. Continued cost increases for just about everything. Yes, that too, I think we saw and continue to see. Assessment increases. Associations increasing their assessments. I think the answer to this one is yes, probably. You guys know better than I do, but everyone's had to increase their fees because of the new legislation. Everyone is increasing costs. So that means your current assessment structure probably isn't going to be enough to pay for all these increased costs, which means you're increasing assessments as well, generally across the board, to be able to pay for all these other cost increases. Collections increases, we predicted that, but that was long before 1137 came around. And so, no, we haven't really seen collection increases, at least not yet. So right now, like I said, what we're hearing is homeowners are paying more because they don't like notice getting posted on their doors, and so they're paying. If that continues, awesome. If it's just a temporary thing, then we probably will see more collection increases next year, later this year, I don't know. But as of 2022, the second half of the year, there were not a whole lot of collection increases, right? And then more lawsuits against associations. So there were lawsuits against associations, but I personally don't think there was more than any given year. So I don't think this is exactly accurate because there were lawsuits, but I don't think they were at some large number than they had been before. Right? So we kind of got some of the predictions right, some of them not so much. So, but let's talk about our predictions for 2023. Yes, and then we can go over them next year and see how many of these we got right. So again, continued costs, fees, increases for services. Not just services, I'd say materials as well, right? Legal fees are going up, insurance fees are going up, management fees, construction fees, labor fees, utility fees, right? Everything's going up right now. And part of that is, well, we have had a lot of inflation, but also we now have a lot of legislation that's making us, do a lot more. I think we're going to continue to see concerns over safety. I hate to say it. It really upsets me that this is an issue, but I think we're going to keep seeing it, and I think people are going to need to continue to take that into account when planning, you know, their association functions and their meetings and things like that. So unfortunately, I think that is going to be an issue. Lawsuits against associations or boards who refuse to collect or enforce. Well, that if we have associations that are saying it's too complicated now and we're not going to do this, are there going to be upset homeowners who are paying their assessments or who are complying with the governing documents that then say, well, wait a minute, my money is supplementing all these other people who aren't paying their assessments, and I'm complying with the covenants, but they're not, and you're not doing anything about it. So are there going to be lawsuits? I've already seen some threatening letters from attorneys to boards on behalf of homeowners saying, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, I haven't given too much credence to those letters. A lot of them just don't know what the new law is, and those associations that receive the letters are actually following the processes. It's just that it takes longer. So, and those attorneys didn't bother to do their homework to see what the process is. But if people are complaining now, I mean, I suspect you might see even more complaints later on and possible lawsuits. We'll see. More legislation making life difficult for associations. So we briefly talked about this early on, right? We were anticipating something on reserve studies. The rumor I have heard, and again, take this with a grain of salt because this is nothing more than a rumor. I haven't seen anything. No one's seen anything. But the rumor is that the reserve study bill is going to require like homeowner approval if an association is not 100% funded, something along those lines. It's kind of similar to what California is doing these days. And I don't know, I don't want to turn into California. So I hope the rumor is wrong. But yeah, the other thing to remember, of course, is that just because a bill is introduced and it's horrible, it doesn't mean it's going to be passed or that it's going to be passed and look exactly the same. Bills do change over time. You know, if you were involved in the legislative process last year and you looked at House Bill 1137 when it was first introduced, it was nothing like what it ended up being at all. Nothing. And so, again, it was horrible. It was really, really bad. But it was nothing like what we got. So just because something is introduced and it's horrible, don't assume it's necessarily going to get passed, and don't assume it's going to get passed exactly as it is written. These bills undergo review, they undergo comments and changes, and so it's not always going to be the same thing we first see. So cleanup bill for 1137, right? Again, that is something that we are hoping for. Hopefully it'll be a good cleanup bill. The complete rewrite of Kiowa got to help us, but not this year. So, and then as I was saying earlier, our first House Bill 1105 for this year is the one that wants to create these task forces to talk about homeowner rights and investigate the homeowner rights. There's absolutely nothing in there about association rights or association duties or association's ability to do anything to help homeowners keep their rights. Apparently that is all irrelevant. So I don't know what this bill is how it's gonna be transformed, if at all, or if it'll pass, but it is out there now. And just FYI, for those of you who want to keep track of these things and you don't know how, we try to blog on things as they come out. So if you're signed up for our newsletters, you should be getting the blogs. If you're not seeing them, please check your spam. They usually end up there. The other thing is on our website, we have a legislative tracking chart, which we try to update in real time. It's not always very successful, but we do try to update in real time, and it follows each bill that has an impact on associations and gives you links to the bills and the status and things like that. So you are always welcome to do that as well. So with that in mind, I'm looking at the little bubble with questions, and it looks like there's like 31 on there, so we probably should move on to that. But first, it's not Bill. I thought this was funny. I know my sense of humor is a little weird, but for those of you who are laughing, you are my people. All right. Okay, I'm gonna look at the questions. You can laugh at this other meme here too, especially if you are a comic book fan. All right, I'm gonna go to the top, and I'm gonna start and go down. A lot of comments about 1137 sucking, which I think we all agree on that. So here's one. Alina, I have security concerns about having to provide board members physical home address if asked. Can you talk about that? Would having board members provide their work address, usually outside of the community, instead be an option? And Mary, you and I emailed about this earlier, but so the way the statute is written, it says you have to, if asked, each board member's mailing address has to be made available, mailing address. So if the homeowner's getting mail at their work address, great, feel free to use it. A P.O. box, if they're getting mail at a P.O. box, you can use it. You can actually have your board members create P.O. boxes where they get mail so that that's the information that may be given out. I have seen this happen in the past. But the Kiowa says it's the mailing address. So I think if you want to be a little creative and hope nobody challenges it, you know, check with your legal counsel, but maybe creating a P.O. box might be the best way to go. All right. It's public information, the addresses of the board members. You can look it up. Yes, that's just the comment to that. Is the CAM requirement coming back? So the manager licensing, not that we've seen, not that we think. It was, you know, tried to come back last year. It was squished. And we're not anticipating any further attempts, at least not in the near future. Definitely not this year, though. So for some of you, yay, and for some of you, boo. How is 1137 having a positive effect on people paying assessments? Well, as I mentioned before, what I'm hearing some people tell me is that homeowners are paying assessments because they're getting a delinquency notice on their door and they're embarrassed and they don't want to keep getting that. And so they are just writing a check. So I would recommend talking to other community managers on that issue because that's what I'm hearing from people. Do I recommend hybrid meetings? I mean, I think sometimes they work. And I think sometimes, I mean, if you're going to have a hybrid meeting, just make sure your technology is good, is what I would say. Make sure that you're not going to have the issues with people hearing one another. And make sure you're going to, you know, depending on what kind of a meeting it is. If it's a board meeting, it might be easier to do a hybrid because homeowners can attend and listen. If it's an annual meeting, you really want to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's, just because, again, you're going to have issues with people hearing one another. You're going to have issues possibly with the voting on the election, budget ratification. So just make sure you are ready and have all your bases covered if you're going to do a meeting that's got both to it. If you record a meeting for transcription purposes only, do you have to announce you are recording? In Colorado, only one person needs to know that a conversation is being recorded. So technically, if the recording person knows it's being recorded, they don't have to announce it. However, might it be good to let homeowners know that so nobody says anything they later regret because now it's recorded? Perhaps. Do all the 2022 bills apply to pre-Kiowa associations? I believe that is yes. I'm kind of trying to go through each one in my head real quick. I believe they all did apply to pre-Kiowa communities as well. Good question. Could you please speak to the difficulty of trying to hold a hybrid meeting? Oh, just covered that. Sorry, there's some also conversations in here, so I'm skipping those. Let's see. When attending an in-person meeting, attendees were asked to sign in on the sheet with their name, and we identify properties by filing and lot number. Okay, this identified The individual is a property owner. Virtual, can you request attendees to sign in with their full name and filing and lot number as well? Well, I think you can if you have a mechanism for them to put all that information in. If what I've seen a lot of communities do is they basically tell homeowners who are on virtually to go in and type out their name, you know, so you can see their name, and then the manager uses the name to cross-reference. I don't know if there's enough room to type in your lot number, but you can try. I've also seen managers just kind of real quick go, okay, you know, this person, what's your address? This person, what's your address? That just takes time. And if you have a lot of people attending, it could make things a little more complicated and prolong the start of the meeting. All right. For a Zoom webinar, you can require people to register before providing them with a meeting link. We would review each registration, confirm that the person is a member, and then manually approve their registration, which automatically sent the meeting link. So that works. That's a good idea. Did everybody hear that? That is something that an association is doing. That seems to work well for them. Good. Problem is the police tell them to call the HOA to handle noise. Okay, so now we're talking about the noise issue and how it's, you know, a one-time thing. Yeah, a lot of times the police doesn't want to get involved, and they are going to tell you, hey, it's the HOA's problem, not ours. They're kind of full of it, but unfortunately, there's very little an association can do. Again, we can send a letter saying, hey, you were noisy last night. We got several complaints. Can you please be more aware of your surroundings next time and be more considerate? But the violation's done. And so we can't do any enforcement at that point. Oh, somebody asked, kind of going back and forth. Somebody asked the name of a platform that allows you to do the meeting, the secret ballots virtually. And the response was Election Buddy. So that's one. There's others that do it, but Election Buddy is definitely one. And then somebody said, Inspectors of Election is a good source. I'm reading these out because I don't think you guys can see these comments. And so I just want to make sure you all get the information because there's some really good information here being shared. Is there still anticipation of legislation requiring HOAs to be 100% funded in Colorado? I think they'd be stupid to present that, which doesn't mean it won't be presented, but I think you'd be pretty stupid considering the governor vetoed last year's bill because he thought it was unreasonable. So I don't know what would be different if there was a suggestion that everything be 100% funded, why Governor Polis wouldn't veto it again. So I think that would be a dumb idea. Doesn't mean it won't be presented, but we're not really anticipating that is going to be presented. Let's see, this will be the last one, because we're almost out of time. I belong to 2 associations. One is an improvement association. Bylaws include provisions for enforcement of community appearance. Board has questions about their options for enforcement. They are considering a vote to become a Kiowa organization. I told them with 1137, their enforcement options would not really be improved. Thoughts and enforcement of an improvement association. So improvement association is a term of art. It's not a legal term. And so my only question would be, do you believe that this community is exempt from Kiowa because it does not have mandatory assessments? If it does not have mandatory assessments, then it is truly exempt from Kiowa. And yes, it is not bound by 1137, although what I'm hearing from our litigators is that judges are going to want to see something similar regardless of whether a community is bound by 1137 or not. If your community, the Improvement Association, if it does have mandatory assessments, chances are you may already be subject to Kiowa and subject to 1137. I would tell you to get with your association's legal counsel and have them look at everything and tell you for sure whether or not you are subject to Kiowa and 1137. So we got through everything. Awesome. Please feel free to, you see my email address. Feel free to email me with any questions. I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. But it is wonderful to be back and to doing these again. And we will see you February 2nd, I believe. And have a great afternoon. And thanks for joining us.